Good morning, you two.
Good morning.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Exciting day. Today is episode 99. Are
I
you guys
know it's
pumped about
big.
99? Like, this is a
Got
big
99
deal.
episodes.
99
ain't one.
episodes that people had to listen to our voices nonstop for 30 minutes.
Get to listen to our voices.
There
I
you
must say it has improved incrementally.
go. Yeah.
So those listening today that didn't listen to episode 1, it is better than it was.
Don't go back and listen to it, please.
Yeah. Don't go re-listen.
No, it was funny because I got that Facebook memory. It was episode 3, and it was all of our cameras were super dark. No one had good audio. We're all on air. I had good audio because I had a good mic, but it was a whole. Yeah, it was funny, and it was just so casual, but love it. Love the progress. A lot of news coming out this last week. We have a lot to cover, and I'm sure we're going to go down a ton of rabbit holes, but anything you guys want to highlight before we jump into the latest and greatest STR, hotel, travel, hospitality news? All the above.
I don't believe so. We got a lot to cover, so hopefully we can get through it all in the typical 30-minute window. But
I forgot. I was going to ask you guys, what was your favorite episodes this last year out of the 99? That was my one thing that we talked about before this. Out of the 99 episodes, what have been your top 2, since we all kind of talked about 2? Michael looks like he's ready to rock, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's 2 very different style episodes that we did. One at Verma in San Antonio. You and I set up in the hallway, Will.
Yeah.
And grabbed virtually everybody that walked by and had them tell us some news about what their company's doing and some interesting things that have come out lately. That was a really fun format. And then in terms of favorite guests, we've had a lot of really, really good ones. But one was so unique and so fascinating to me. Mike Baxter from the House of Gods in Scotland.
Yeah.
Was a great episode, and I could probably have him back on every week and learn from him. So
Michael just replaces me and Brandy with
Mike myself Baxter. Out. Another Michael. Great.
back to square one, right where it all began. No, those were very good episodes. I agree. I like those. Brandy, how about you? You haven't been with us very long, but you've been kind of indoctrinated into the whole GMH culture and show and all the BS behind the scenes, so go for it.
Sure. So I also love the House of Gods episode. I went on a real rabbit hole after that. So he seemed, I just kind of want to hang out with him.
Yeah.
So.
He's a blast. Yeah. We had some fun with him in Scotland.
My 2 favorites so far were the VRMA Las Vegas episode, really just because being in person together, I think, the energy is just different. And even though Michael wasn't there, it was great to actually meet Jamie for the first time in person, which was bizarre because I didn't realize that we actually hadn't met before. So that was great. And then we had a 2-parter of, is this practical? And I think that always makes sense because there's a lot of things that think you on paper and theory, you're that makes total sense. And it's really great to dissect, does it actually work in the real world?
Yeah, no, I agree. And it was so funny in Vegas when you and Jamie were talking, and then all of a sudden 10 minutes in the conversation, is this the first time we've actually met? Yeah. I was like, oh, this is great. I love it. I love it when that happens. No, that was a good time. It was a really good time. For me, I would say the Ryan Bailey episode, that was just fun to do, a breaking news story, kind of last minute, very last minute, the day before, getting a message saying, hey, we need this news covered and we'd love to have your show do it. To then also the big brands, little brands, and no brands. I like the conversation we go into because Sexton has a lot to input into story, does a lot to put input into it. And of course, coming from Marriott originally, in my experience, was just a fun conversation. I think it opens up the door to a lot of other topics. So those are my 2 highlights this last year so far. Next week, we do, for all of our listeners, before we jump into the episode, we do have Jeff, who is the founder of Host GPO. Wow, coffee is not kicking in this morning. founder of Host GPO. He's coming on the show not only to talk to us about what's going on with their business, but then also we're doing and wrapping up our giveaway. We launched it last week officially on Instagram. So for all of you listeners and watchers, we are giving away this amazing Nespresso coffee box. Get up basically, the basics for your short-term rental. So excited about that. All right, now let's jump in. We have a lot to cover, so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to move over. So who wants to cover this one? I'm curious on I've never heard of this brand, so
I'll take it.
Go for it.
So Les Collectionnistes, if my French accent is good, plays in the high-end luxury hospitality segment. So it is a booking site. They do have added layers of service on top of it, but they take some of the biggest and best properties all around the world. If you think back, Airbnb purchased Luxury Retreats, similar concept, but 60 million is a big bag right now. It goes to show there's a lot of confidence, regardless of the economy, but a lot of confidence in the luxury segment. So congrats to Max and team over there.
Awesome. Now let's move over to Alto Vita. I had the pleasure of getting to chat with one of the co-founders of Alto Vita not too long ago before their Alto Awards. Really cool business model, really cool team. And I don't remember if we fully talked about funding, but I know that they pretty much were all self-funded until recent. So that's pretty cool to see, like the startup hustle grind, getting to like building out a platform first, building out the business, and then going to get funding. So I just really liked that part of the story.
Yeah, there used to be a number of corporate housing platforms, but they've all kind of gone away. So they're coming in and filling in a gap that used to exist in a great way. As Airbnb goes more towards their single host focus, it's less usable for corporate accommodation. So it makes sense. Congrats to Vivi and Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Brandy, do you guys do a lot with corporate?
We're trying to, that's actually one segment that we're building out more now. In New Orleans, we have a lot because of the convention center is really close to a lot of our buildings. So we get a lot of like that travel. And Miami, we'll get a good mix, especially in our Brickell buildings. That's probably our biggest one.
Brickell makes sense. For sure. All right. Oops. I hit the wrong button. Sorry, guys. I messed up. All right. We're going to go back to Resort Pass. Here we go. All right. Sorry for our technical errors. All right. Resort Pass raises 26 million whopping dollars. You guys were talking pre-show kind of about Resort Pass and seeing them before. So I'll let you guys take it away with your thoughts and comments.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had heard of them a couple years ago. They were really trying to expand, I think, around in Miami. And I think the concept is great. You can, and especially for hotels, you can kind of sell these like empty slots in your pool area, your spa services, that kind of thing. And we were also thinking it's great for guests, if we can't give you a late checkout, if you're kind of far from our office and we don't have a spot that's really convenient for you to put your bag, this is a great option where you can go and spend a couple of hours before your flight, or a couple hours before check-in, whichever end of your trip. So I think that's great. 26 million is quite a lot. So I think that's great for them. And yeah, I'll be curious to see how it goes. I'd love to see some sort of partnership opportunities, maybe for Sextant. So I have to maybe hit them up after this.
I was gonna say, any Resort Pass people watching right now, Sextant's hungry and looking for a partnership.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, I was gonna say, I didn't know if it's a Series A or B, but it says right there, so it's good.
A couple thoughts on that. I think 26 million is a lot. Very curious what the TAM is on Resort Passes. Especially if they don't even have a program yet to partner with companies like Sextant that are in very resorty types of places like South Florida.
Mhm.
There aren't resorts in every destination market, but when you've got short-term rentals that lack some of the resort amenities, a spa, a pool with service, or gyms, things like that, then if you're in the close vicinity of some of these properties, it's a great value add for the traveler, for the hotel to squeeze some extra cash flow, and for the property management company on the short-term rental side to offer a little bit more than just the house.
And also, I mean, in Miami, it's great. Like, it's nice sometimes if I have friends from out of town, or even if just doing like a kind of like weekend activity, being able to go and buy the day pass.
Mhm.
Some places have day passes, but they're,
Yeah.
$300.
Yeah.
So I don't know what their pricing will be like, but it'd be nice, even as a local, just going to do something like fun and relaxing for the weekend.
That's
Yeah,
a
it's
good
an
point.
interesting take. I think, I'm very curious the TAM on this, but the concept is great, and I think they definitely need to take a look at partnering with short-term rental providers.
Mhm. Well, it's funny because like I think it was a Shark Tank episode, or there's some other kind of like pitch investment show. I don't remember Shark Tank or if it was something else. But I think it was like Hotels by Day or dayhotels.com or something like that, where a company was pretty much just trying to sell day passes for hotel rooms. And it was, again, one of those things that great in theory, right? Like if they're not being used, then awesome, like might as well make some extra revenue. But it just never ended up becoming something that was profitable, or even it was a money sucker for the hotel rather than a maker, because then you have to clean the room twice basically if you're like sold out. And so I think that concept was great in theory, not practical. This one sounds like it's great in theory and practical because, like Brandy said, I think the local aspect, like what a great way to get the like during slow seasons, any type of gap, you can always make some extra revenue there. But then it does sound like even if it is busy, anyone could use it
I,
and go for it.
I wonder the downstream effects of this, though. If you're the Ritz or any super luxury exclusive property, maybe they're not the ones that are adding resort pass because the guests don't want just Joe Blow off the street to post up next to them all day.
Yeah.
They like the privacy and the closed off from the rest of the world. So yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a specific market. It's not going to be your super high end properties, but we'll see. I don't know that much about them, admittedly.
Brandy, let us know what happens when you hit him up. All right.
Yeah, I'll do a test run.
Secret shopper.
I love it. I love it. All right. Off to the next one. We got Yukio, a premium apartment rental platform for Europe's flexible workforce, raises 28 million.
Go ahead and hit the next one or two as well, if you will.
Will.
If you will.
Peruvian startup. And then we have our last two after this.
Okay.
So
we've seen a lot of funding for operators outside of the US. We've covered it almost every week for the past month or two. And it's a great sign. It's a great trend. It's a bit curious how there's not many American companies being so deeply funded, but it's all seemingly international. But if you double click into that a little bit, it does make sense somewhat. These are untapped markets. The TAM in Europe, for example, is bigger than the TAM in the US. And if companies in the US have gone public like Sonder, the stock price may not be reflective of a great successful IPO, but they made it. They've got a track record. It's proven this is how you can grow and scale. And when you can enter a market in Peru and be the only operator there, or you can kind of roll up a group of European cities or countries, there's benefit there. And if you can get in the first round, there's a lot more upside, more value that you can equate to to the company than if you invested in, a Series C company in the US. So it does make sense why, travel is back. The whole COVID thing seems to be over, although it sounds like LA is contemplating some things.
They don't count. They're in their own little world over there.
Yeah, so hopefully we don't take 5 steps backwards, but travel is recovering, and so the investment, the thaw that we saw for a while of not too many companies being invested in, and VC is sitting on a bunch of cash. Looks like the checkbooks are flowing now. They were probably flowing then, and now people are just announcing. But here we are. It's congrats to the rest of the world. This is great.
Yeah, I love seeing an operator in Peru getting this kind of funding, because I know Peru was hit really hard. And obviously tourism is such a big, component of their economy. So I think it's nice to see kind of the funds being spread out and some new markets getting that attention.
Why do you guys, well, I know Michael kind of touched on it, but maybe I want your input as well, Brandy. Like, why do you think we're seeing more of a global investment kind of announcement rather than a lot of US ones? Do you think we're just, again, it's just waiting on announcements? Like, the money's flowing now, but we're just not seeing it?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Michael that like the really maybe more of the opportunities are kind of outside the US right now. And if we have all these companies that in the States that are maybe a little bit more mature, you're going for later rounds. It's a much bigger check, usually takes a little bit longer, to get all of that sorted. You might have layers to your round. So I think we might see some more announcements later on, but I agree with Michael. I think you just have kind of more opportunities outside the States right now.
Yeah.
And I haven't done my diligence on who the investors of all these different companies are, but if they've invested in the space at all, they have some learnings, successes or failures. Maybe they invested in Domio and realized how not to light $100 million on fire. Well done, Team Domio. But maybe they invested in Sonder and realized like this model's great, but maybe we don't invest quite as much money in furnishings or quite as much money in headcount. The model works, but fill in the blank. And if you can take those learnings to a company that has a good footprint and can dominate and be the market player there, you could be teed up for, say, Sonder wanting to expand in Peru, and they just buy the biggest operator instead. So it's not always an IPO route. You can build to sell as well. So hopefully some of their investors have some experience in the space and can take past learnings. The good news about this model is it's now existed for quite a while. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's not, first to market.
Yeah.
And it's always a better spot to be able to copy successful companies than to try and invent your own.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw, I highlighted the Resort Pass. One of the investors was Brian Kelly, the points guy. Like, that's kind of funny. I thought those.
But that makes a lot of sense to me.
Total sense.
Yeah.
But also like, dang, like just shows like a media influencer who just started this thing by like a blog, right? I think that's what it started off with, was he was just blogging about how to pretty much get free flights and free hotels using your credit cards. Now it's like he's investing in companies, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, if you can use points for a day pass, I'd be more inclined to do that than actually pay for one personally.
Yeah. I love points. All right. To the next one. This was one of our main ones for the day. And I'll bring us back here. We see that Wander raises another round. 100
It's a
mil.
debt facility.
Still, whatever. Round debt. They raise some money.
And scroll down, see who it's from. It's from a massive bank. So they're taking capital now that is meant to be deployed to purchase properties, which is PropCo OpCo model, which I love. I'm a big fan. I think you can absolutely control your own destiny if you have these takedown funds that you can go acquire hard assets. And then you own it, you manage it, you control every aspect of it. we'll get to a very, very, very different model next. But without jumping ahead, owning and squeezing as much ROI, NOI, cap rate out of every property is a win-win for the propco investor and the opco investor. So both sides can win. Congrats to Wander. I love the model. Avon Stay has done something similar. I think it was somewhere in the ballpark of, it was definitely 100 million plus in their fund as well. But it is the future, right? People want to stay in homes that are more like hotels than, someone's actual home, and especially on the higher end, the luxury side. So big fan of what Wander's doing.
Same.
And Credit Suisse was the bank. Will, I saw you scrolling for it. But...
I highlighted it. It's right there.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
I was just reading the rest of the article. Go ahead, Brandy.
Yeah, I mean, I just love the houses. Also, when I've been flipping through, they have some pretty nice places.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing a live episode from there.
Yeah,
no big
we
deal.
have quite the list of places that we're gonna go visit and do some live episodes from.
Yeah, to our future potential sponsors, just know this is what the
Delta answer our calls.
But I think a point you made kind of leads nicely into the next article about like people wanting to stay in homes that are, really professionally operated, especially on the luxury end. And I think that, our next article, I think we can kind of go deeper into that.
Well, okay, so the nice thing about Wander, I like their model because it's like standardized homes. So you're like, I think Michael just said it earlier, you're not taking somebody's current residence or a secondary vacation home and trying to make it somewhat non-personal and turning it into a vacation rental. Now Airbnb, I don't know. I like the idea because I know one of the companies that they're going to be using for this program, Central, which I think is based out here in Denver. One of their buildings is right next to, like, a couple of blocks away from where I live. So I see the building. It's active. It's no, I don't see any like sketchy guests going in and out of the building. Like, it seems like a really good market fit for its location and for their desired traveler. But my immediate thoughts, or the immediate like thing that came to my mind when seeing Airbnb launch this, I think it was last week, was that it's Nido all over again. And I don't like that. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, especially Brandy, like you guys have these apartment buildings. And so seeing that they're going to like have individual hosts run it most likely again is kind of
obviously I'm, I guess, a little biased because our model is you take an entire building, and that way anytime you have a sort of combination between short-term and long-term tenants, I just think it's a recipe for disaster. And so, let's say the apartment building has 400 units. How many people are actually going to be using that program? And I think one way that this would be less sketchy, or scary from my perspective, would be like, okay, the building runs the program. If you want to open up some dates, you tell the building, they organize the clean, they maybe take a little bit of the percentage, and then I think that's just way more organized. That does not seem to be the way that this is going to go. And so if you have 400 different hosts and they all have their own like check-in instructions or like procedures, and you're having all the cleaners.
Different
maybe they're not getting
fees.
Yeah, exactly. So Will could have a $50 cleaning fee, Michael has 80s, and I have $150, and it's all the same unit. So I love the idea of people being able to cover some expenses and subsidize their cost of living. Again, this is like good in theory, but is it practical? So
I think it's the theme of the year. We're going to call that the theme of the year.
Yeah. I've got a lot of mixed feelings on these. Like, I loved the Nido model. The amount of revenue they were pushing back towards the property owner was insane. It was really, really good. I think the challenge is making sure everyone in the building knows what they've signed up for living there. And what I haven't seen, and yes, call me biased, I worked at Noiseware for 4 years, was these companies, especially Airbnb, requiring Noiseware to be in all these apartments so they don't disturb the community. Pricing, cleaning, like how is all of this run? And if that's where I think something like RealPage's product Migo makes more sense. They can kind of layer in more help than probably what Airbnb is offering the residents. Scheduling, cleaning, messaging guests, talking to them, being connected with the guest, some layers of standardization. But it's quite the polar opposite from the announcement we made 2 weeks ago, which is Apartments by Marriott. Like, take your pick as a traveler. Would you rather go to Apartments by Marriott or an apartment community? And I think that boils down to price point. I would assume Marriott's going to be significantly more expensive than somebody's apartments in whatever city. I think they 150 plus properties that Airbnb rolled out to. But I do like the ability for residents to list their property and make some money. Like, that's an attractive amenity as a resident. It could be you just rent out one time a year, but that one time is the Super Bowl and you can make $2,000. Like, that's great. Maybe you only rent out one time a year. Or maybe you're a traveling nurse or a pilot or a flight attendant or whatever, and you just a consultant and you're on the road a lot, and you can keep your place looking like a hotel, like almost no personal goods. That's great too. I think the line is like when it becomes too much of your own house, your own apartment, and others staying there. So as a guest, the first two are great and the last one's a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, I also think, you have, let's say, one building, a lot of hosts are starting to host. People are going to start leaving Google reviews and things like that on the building. And so you could be like, you have just an inconsistent experience. So I'd be curious just to see over time, like what the customer response is, because as an operator, we have some buildings where like so many people are like 5 stars. We love this place, blah, blah, blah. And then we get people who like for the same reasons hate it. And we're the same operator. So it'll be curious to see what the customer experience over time is when everybody is having these different interactions with the same building.
Yeah, I think it targets. Go ahead.
I think it's probably the coolest amenity an apartment complex can have. But it doesn't come without its challenges for sure.
Yeah, I think it comes like, for me, it's not going to be the renter that I would say is in their 40s plus that, has a family, all this other stuff. It's really for the younger like renter that is not materialistic and is very experiential. Like we're seeing that like right with millennials and Gen Z, everyone's all about experiences and wanting to focus on that rather than having all these nice things. So having a nice apartment like that, I think that's attractive to them because then they can depersonalize it. They can make it more standard to fit like the building's kind of code of operation or code of standard for decoration and check-in and stuff like that. And then just be kind of a little bit more removed from it emotionally. It's not like my home where a lot of owners, when they invest into a secondary, third or fourth home or whatever, they're all like emotionally tied. Like, oh my gosh, like this is where me and my kids like go for every 2 weeks, or not every 2 weeks, go for 2 weeks of the summer or whatever. And they have like these emotional like connections to it. Now you're going to have like a renter who's like, I don't own the asset, but I can make some money and I can use that for travel. I can use that for going out with friends. I could use that for paying off debt, rent, whatever. Like it doesn't matter. So I think it would be interesting to see because Airbnb hasn't been known to set expectation or like kind of a standard or operational procedure. So I'd love to see like example Central, like they do have standards. They do have
Central's a little bit different than Airbnb just dropping in on a multifamily building though. So
But that's hopefully they're going for companies like that, right? Like you're hoping that they find the companies like Sextant or Central or whatever that do have standards, that do have that, and they can hopefully bring that into the tenant world.
Yeah.
But again, it's all great in theory. It sounds like a fun, easy thing for them to do, but how
Well,
often?
we then become competitors, right?
Yeah.
With this. And so, yeah, like bring us in to consult and just take all, like a brain drain. And then, now you have, some competition. So,
Yeah, I agree.
I'd like to make a prediction or two or guess on where this ends up going. So
Michael, you gotta wait. You gotta save the predictions for our
this is different.
influence.
I've got a much better prediction for that one.
Yeah.
So Will is referencing a influencer prediction show we're going to be doing soon. So everyone who's hearing this, it's a sneak peek. We'll announce it next week.
Yeah. But just putting it out there.
Yeah, just putting it out there. Keep an eye out. My guess is that this Airbnb multifamily thing is going to stick around. I think it will become more concentrated on fewer buildings. So let's say there's, call it 200 buildings today. I would guess that 5% of residents are turning on the ability to rent out their place. And in a year or two, we might be down to 125 buildings, but 10% or 15% of residents. I think it'll kind of natural selection of people opting in or out of that activity of where they live as well. So
yeah, I think people will start to be like, oh, if I'm moving, I hear this building allows me to do this. I think there's going to be a friction with people that already live in the buildings now that they're turning this on. So I think you're spot on there.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for my apartment building to tell me that they're ready to turn it on, because I'm never in my unit when I'm traveling for a year or so. That'd be a nice way to pay off some bills. But
awesome. Well, only 2 minutes over today. That was a lot of topics to discuss.
Yeah, a lot of activity. Sweet. So before we close off, just again, next week, Jeff from Host GPO is joining us. We're announcing the winner of the Coffee Box giveaway. That's going to be our 100th episode. So what?
I'm sad. Am I on next week, or is that Jamie? If it's Jamie,
it's just Jeff. So I was gonna say, do you want to join us next week? You're more than welcome to. We have you on the 100th. So come on, let's get it.
Pop in and say hi.
Yeah, let's get it. Have you pop in like Jamie did that one time when he was in his car. He's like, I'm tuning in live. So 100th episode, big deal. Super excited. We'll probably share some more like stuff coming up for the show in 2023. I know we'll take a couple breaks during Christmas. So just keep your eyes peeled. And for anyone watching, listening, make sure you enter into the Coffee Box giveaway, just so that way next week when we do announce the winner, you'll find out if you get this awesome brand new Nespresso machine. So really excited. Good episode today. For all of you live viewers, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for commenting. Hello, Michael Ross, for tuning back into the show. Mr.
Hey, buddy.
He's like, I miss you guys. So it's really good, and we'll see you all again next week.